start recording. Cool.
Oh, hello, Robert.
Okay, so over to you, Caroline and Ian.
Okay, hi, I'll kick off. The two things really. First of all, where is Ross-on-Wye? Which you may or may not know already, but we tend to be stuck out in the corner a little bit. A lot of people from London or even Birmingham think M5, and then the other side of the M5 there's Wales, but there's Herefordshire in the middle, and that's where we are. So right on the other side of the River Severn on the M5. So that's Ross-on-Wye. The Museum Without Walls is, as we've heard, is an augmented reality thing. What's augmented reality? It's you've probably heard of virtual reality, where you can kind of enter a virtual world. Well, augmented reality does a similar thing, but it projects or puts some models or some items or whatever into the real world. So it appears that they're there in the real world. And that's what we've done with the Museum Without Walls. We've reconstructed bits of Ross as they were in history. They're no longer there, but they appear to be there. So what we're going to do in the next little while is I've actually got 3 bits of film to show you, if it all works, which total about 10 minutes. And in between, Caroline and I will tell you a bit how the project progressed, which might take another 10 minutes. And then the rest of the time we've got there, we're very happy to answer questions and hope you get something out of it. So I shall attempt to run a 2-minute video, which our technology partners who actually built the app produced not very long ago, to give you a general introduction to what the project is and what it looks like. Okay. The Museum Without Walls was launched to show some hidden gems of Ross, to show bits of Ross-on-Wye that people don't know about, to bring the past to life.
2 aims really. One was to improve the facilities for tourists in the town. We don't have a physical museum, and providing one's prohibitively expensive, so this fit the bill in an innovative way. And then for the people who already live here, to provide more information about the many stories that exist in the town about our past, related to objects around the town.
The app has given people something really interesting to do when they're out and about in Ross. And I think it's brought a sense of pride to the town's history as well. I know for a fact my husband absolutely loves showing people how the app works.
The app is more than just historical recreation. It's a true learning experience. We know that it's been used to engage tourists. It's been used to really bring the stories, the local stories of Ross to life for local residents, and also for groups of school children, where the app has been a real useful tool in educating them about their local history and the people and characters and stories that make up Ross-on-Wye.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed working on this project. Ross is a lovely town, and I've loved putting in all the little hidden details into all the scenes.
The app as it now stands provides a really good reason to visit Ross, and so that Ross, the town, will have more visitors, more tourism, and become better known.
It's been a lot of fun and a real privilege and honour to work with createRoss, the Ross Town Council, local residents of the town, to create this digital learning experience. We can't wait to see how it continues to be used and potentially to expand it even further over the coming years.
Okay, so how do I get myself back again now? Well, that gives you a basic background to the project anyway. I'm now going to ask Caroline anyway to begin just to tell us a bit of background to createRoss and to how the project started. And I'll try to get rid of my video at the right time.
Right. So, well, back in 2016, someone in Hereford had the idea of entering Herefordshire into the City of Culture bid for 2021. Obviously, they wanted to incorporate the whole county, so it made it rather unusual rather than just being the city of Hereford, which is quite a small one. So they wanted to expand it to the whole county, and they reached out to the market towns to become involved. I was a town councillor at the time, and because I have a background in the arts, I think that's why I was chosen to take the project forward. And I called a meeting inviting local people who might be interested to come along, and they did. And after a few months of meeting and talking, we formed a group. The bid ultimately was unsuccessful, perhaps not surprising. And I think Hull won it for 2021, perhaps a bit of a poison chalice in the end because they had COVID to navigate as well. But as Victoria read out our aims and ambitions, we wanted to promote the arts in the town. We got a group of really interesting people together. createRoss aims to facilitate other people to put on their events and projects and work with other groups. We've worked with the Friends of the Church, the Town Council, the Orchestra of the Swan, Gwent Chamber Orchestra. And we always encourage local schools to get involved in what we're doing. Over the years, we've put on a busking festival. We did Ross Reinvented Festival over one weekend, which included a soul band, a classical concert, and a puppet show for the children. And last year, we were involved in John Curl 300. Now, John Curl's going to crop up a fair bit as we talk about our projects this evening. He was a 17th century philanthropist in Ross and was immortalised by Alexander Pope in a poem upon riches. He was used as an ideal of a man with money and using that money for the good of the people, for the good of the people of Ross. And last year was the 300th anniversary of his death. So we put on, with others, a year-long celebration of his life. So in 2018, createRoss became aware of a grant that was being administered by Hidden Gems in Herefordshire. And this was a 3-year grant scheme delivered by Herefordshire's A Great Place that brought together arts, heritage, and rural communities and the creative use of digital technology. So we wanted to come up with a project that we could apply for some of that money for. I'd done quite a bit of reading about John Curl and the history of the town over the years, and I was aware that there used to be a fountain in the centre of what's called the Prospect, which is a public garden in the town. And I often thought it would be wonderful to be able to bring that fountain back to life, but obviously we couldn't rebuild it in stone. That would be impractical and far too expensive. So we began researching around this project. We agreed that this was a good project to work on. Let's tell you a little bit about the Prospect. It's a public park created by Curl in 1700, which was a very forward-looking thing to do. He leased the land from Lord Weymouth, the Marquis of Bath, for 500 years. It's an irregular rectangle open space in an elevated position overlooking the River Wye, next to the parish church. It had walkways around it and across it and a view of the River Wye below. on the western side, where was also a sundial. It was planted with elm trees around part of the perimeter and had a fountain at its centre. Really remarkable for a small town of probably fewer than 1,000 people. I think John Curle's ambitions were great for the town. He wanted the people of Ross to have the finer things in life. He organised a water wheel to be built on the river, which pumped water up to the prospect and the fountain through hollowed out trunks. So they'd cut tree trunks in half, hollow them out, and then bind them back together with bands of steel, well, metal. But unfortunately, they weren't terribly successful over time. They leaked quite a bit and constantly needed repairing. And by 1790, the fountain had been removed. Later on, by 1869, half the prospect had been pinched by the landlord of the recently built Royal Hotel for his guests to use. And this actually sparked riots in the town, and part of the hotel was seriously damaged. Another of Ross's philanthropists in the 19th century stepped in, bought both the hotel and the prospect, and gave the remaining public section to the town in perpetuity. So anyway, as a result of the research that I did, I was able to reconstruct what the prospect would have looked like in 1700. And I did some drawings, which I found. So this is the bit that was lost. And I've got another one here that shows the plan. So you can see, I don't know if you can.
There's only half of it left. So on your screens, the prospect now is the left half of that. The right half has been nabbed by the hotel. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the centre there would be the fountain. At the top here is the west end side, which overlooked the Wye, and then you've got the Royal Hotel here. So yes, the hotel nicked this whole section.
So shall I run the video, which we did a 6-minute video, this one, which actually went into, which showed the process with which we developed the lost fountain thing, and that tells you a bit of the history as well. And part of the point about the whole museum is not just the AR models, there is this background to each of them as well. So it's a kind of a history lesson as well.
This hole, sorry. And then there's the wall, and then there's the world.
Yeah. So I used it quite a lot.
Created a whole form of prospect and most cost-effective way to do things and things that realise that this is I think it will be so exciting for people of Ross and hopefully ignite their interest in the town's history.
We want the Hidden Gems projects to bring together communities who are passionate about culture and creativity, people who are really knowledgeable about digital, and also with arts and heritage groups. So it's really collaborative, and the idea is that we're creating some new partnerships around culture.
And it's
probably about the eye level, if you're standing, would be about here.
I was very interested to do this because it's a big departure from my usual paintings, houses and play the pulse and shots and things. This is
Yeah.
art.
dimension really for me, and having to make models to view something that we're having to make a little bit of a guess at sometimes is been a completely different aspect of work for me.
The Prospect project is something that's been really interesting to me when I was invited on. Basically, we get a chance to recreate a piece of history right here in Ross for people to experience that they've not seen in over hundreds of years. The creation of the fountain right here in the centre, it was a magnificent masterpiece, it was a spectacle, and it's been lost to the times of history. So the chance for us at Sly Spirit to actually then come along and recreate this for everybody, it's a great opportunity, and yeah, I'm looking forward to everybody being able to see it.
I am doing a 3D photo scan of the Prospect area, so we can recreate the whole area into a 3D environment, which we can then match with geotagged locations to then create any 3D elements we want and place in situ on the site. So as people can come around and have a look around here, and see
and action!
I like anything that involves children in using technology and learning, that helps to bring learning to life for them, to take learning into directions that it couldn't otherwise go, and this is such a project. It's important, I think, to have an audience and purpose for work that children do. This project gives them an audience and a purpose and an exciting means in which to work.
I like them looking at me. I like learning.
Project's starting to take shape, as you know. It's suddenly come to life over the last couple of months. We're delighted with the way the drawings are developing of the fountain, and today's been a great experience seeing all these young people with such energy and enthusiasm starting to get to grips with the history of the Prospect and John Curle. Obviously this is our first attempt at creating an exhibit for our would-be museum without walls, and our hope is that over the next couple of years we're going to expand it from one exhibit to, dare I say it, a dozen or more.
The problems we're encountering, they're not really problems, it's just the steps along the way, along the process of where we're going. We've just got to do the tests, we've just got to get it all working right. And then, in a way, probably the biggest problem is just the severe scope of the different amounts of technology everybody has, their mobile phones.
It's always there, my room full of 3D objects now. So yeah, that's for newer devices basically, and yes, I'm not far from making it like work properly.
It would be great if this idea that started out on the Prospect could be extended out to other places in the town. There are plenty of historical sites in this town that people know little bits about, but not enough, and it would be great to involve children in telling those stories too.
Obviously I'd like to see a fully functioning museum without walls, which would mean that when people come to Ross-on-Wye, one of the things they want to do is walk around the town with their smartphone or their tablet and be able to see the town as it was at different periods throughout history.
I never knew there was a fountain there. I didn't know about the waterworks that were here. I didn't know about the people that were involved here. And I'm just going to say, I've learnt all that, and now we're going to get a chance to actually show it to everybody else.
In Ross-on-Wye, with a project, the Perini project from createRoss, it shows what can happen when different groups, different sectors all come together to collaborate. Traders, arts experts, digital technologists, community members, all coming together because they're really passionate about history in Ross, creativity, and making that available to as many people as possible.
I can do without the rest of the credits. So that gives you the process of the very first one. As the end caption said, we launched that in March 2019, and indeed we have extended it now to 12 sites. The last of the 12 were launched, I can't remember, was it earlier this year or at the end of last year? So the process is all of them has been Caroline and Mark, actually, who you saw working with the school children, did most of the historical research in the background. Once we felt that we got a body of research and enough visual references where there are any to produce, so that we knew what the thing looked like, whatever it might be, we then involved a local artist. It's important to us that it was local, that it was as much was done in Herefordshire as could be. And in fact, there were 4 artists altogether over the whole project. And they, in the case of the fountain, we had no idea what the fountain actually looked like. We had descriptions of the size of the pool and what happened to it. But so we decided, we looked at other fountains in other situations at the end of the 17th century and decided what was most likely. In the case of the next project, which was Underhill, it was a row of houses in the middle of what's now in the middle of the street, at the top of the town in Ross, which were demolished in 1860, but there were drawings of them. There were engravings of them, so we knew roughly what they looked like, and that was used as the basis for making the computer models. In fact, that artist liked doing it with computer graphics anyway, which rather shortened the whole process. We, as I say, we ended up with 12 in all, and so the process was the research, the visualization, and then in the case of the first one, Sly Spirit was a local Herefordshire firm, but Sergei, as you saw briefly there, was the actual wizard who built the model, and he simply wasn't available because he's doing so many feature film special effects jobs. So we had to change to the current people who build and are involved in the technology firm, and they're called One Up. They're London based. I was introduced to them by Wessex Archaeology, as it happened, who do a lot of visualization, but not this kind of thing. So because of course the process is we can get what the thing looks like, but we then need to turn it into something which you can walk around, and that's what One Up did, and are still doing for us, in fact. So that's the actual process. There are 12 around the town, of various sorts. The first 3 were the fountain, Underhill, the row of houses, and the boats on the River Wye. As Caroline, tell us about tourism in Ross and the Wye tour.
Oh yeah, sure. Ross has been famous. You may not have heard of it, but we think it's famous as the birthplace of British tourism since the 1750s. This was due to the vicar at the time, Reverend John Egerton. He started sending his society guests down the River Wye in a pleasure boat to get them out of the house for a while. He and his wife were linked to the aristocracy and were often visited. And I think he found this a useful way to get rid of them for a day or so. And he had this boat converted as a pleasure craft, which was unheard of at the time. And this caught on. It was so popular. And a few years later, there were 8 of these boats. Enterprising people converted their own ones and started charging people to go down the river. And in the 1780s, a chap called Gilpin came. He'd heard about this tour, came to the area, wanted to take the Wye Valley tour, wrote a guidebook encouraging people to appreciate the picturesque nature of the landscape and draw it, paint it. And that is the first known tourist guidebook. So the jumping off place was Ross for these tours. So tourism has been very important to the town's economy since then. Over the years, we gradually lost our tourist infrastructure to some extent. The Heritage Centre was closed down in the period of austerity in the 2015. All the little local museums had gradually shut down over the years, and we'd lost quite a few of our hotels. I think it was around about 2014, the town council had a report done by a professional looking at the town centre and how it could be improved. And his one recommendation was that we should try and provide something for visitors to keep them in the town for a little bit longer. They could come and wander by the river, they could have something nice to eat and do some shopping, but there wasn't a great deal else to keep them in the town. So the Museum Without Walls admirably fulfills that gap to some extent. It gives people a reason to walk around the town and explore it and learn more about it and have some fun. And of course, it's also, as has been said in the films, very useful for local people to find out more about where they live. Yeah, I think that's all I've got to say on that.
One final bit of video. I'll answer the questions I've got on chat when we get to the end of a little bit, and I'm conscious that we haven't got that much time, but I've just cut together 3 screenshots, really screen videos of 3 of them, just so you can see how they work and what 3 of them look like. There's sometimes a bit oddly truncated, but that's the way it works. That's the way the filming worked. Commentary on them, because each of them have a commentary which gives you some background. You can turn the commentary off so you don't drive yourself mad every time if you watch it, look at the thing lots of times. There's no right way of looking at the model, looking at the site, but the commentary will always run at the start, at the beginning. As I say, you can always switch it off and then just explore the site on your own. Just 3 for you to look at. The first is the Rood Screen in St Mary's. I think of the 12, there are 2 that I think they're all lovely, but there are 2 which really work for me in that, as far as I'm concerned, on the prospect.
Sorry, just quickly. It's so we've only got sort of 2.5 minutes left. I've been trying to upgrade it. I'm just wondering, that Zoom thing where if people go out, if you all just click back on the link again, normally you can get back in again, can't you? I don't know if that's going to work or not.
I thought we had about 10 minutes left. Oh, okay.
It's telling me we've got 2 minutes, 26 seconds left. I don't know why, because it's supposed to be 45 minutes, but it seems to have cut us down. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, just very quickly, you can try clicking back in again. This is one which it shows you. Each one has got
Welcome
a sign.
to Ross-on-Wye's Museum Without Walls, and to one of a growing number of exhibits that you'll find around the town.
Point your camera at the app at the sign, and
this is St Mary's Church.
And the sign
it's been
tells
the
you
parish church for Ross since it was built in 1284. Many visitors comment on the bright and airy space in here, especially following the very recent transformation of the nave. Rood screens and crucifixion on them. Christ in the...
Just skipping through.
But it takes it from a fascinating story from the 17th century. The old maid in question is Clara Marquis, and she walks up and down this lane, pining for her young lover, Ralph Mortimer. The story begins in Alton Court, its owner at the...
In 1964, before its closure, a casualty of the Beeching Cuts. Hereford is the...
So that's just a snatch of 3. You launch them at a sign, and then you can walk around them. As I was saying at the beginning, the Rood Screen and the fountain are my favourites in that I believe that there really is a Rood Screen there, and there really is a fountain. You just need the magic window to see them. The others are all wonderful, but they don't have quite that impact for me of reality. Quick look at the questions. We started aiming at high-end devices. There's no way around this. This is sort of cutting-edge technology. There are devices it won't run on, and as technology improves, things get better and more devices catch up. But it's got to be top end stuff, and that's something you've just got to buy. Once it's all self-contained, the digital assets at the moment, just now, 5 years on, we're having to update a little bit because operating systems have changed.